So, as you heard in the song titled No Matter What, I wanted to give a sermon titled No Matter What. And before I start on the sermon, I just want to kind of go back to a couple things from some previous weeks and just some highlights of the summer. I know many of you are probably wondering, because a month or two ago I made a big to-do about the next chapter of the Colorado Family Church. And you're probably wondering what's going on and why haven't we heard more? And in my mind at that time, I was thinking this was going to be a fairly quick process, which was very naive of me. Change is never easy, and you probably can make change happen quickly, but there's that old African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. Something like that. And that proverb has really been growing on me because I just realizing more and more how true it is and how more important to me than going quickly, it's going together and going far. So that kind of implies that things take time, and good things take time. And that, I believe, it applies to this situation too. I think we want to do something big. We want to do something that's going to be long-lasting, and we want to do something that, there is change. So I want to make sure everyone's on board fully. And so it's taking time, more than I thought, but it's been very good. I gave a presentation to some of our, core team, and I got a lot of great feedback. And so I've had to go back to the drawing board a little bit. And it's exciting, but like I said, it's taking time. So please be patient with us. It will be good. It's also, we're coming to the end of summer, and this will probably be like the smallest Sunday service we're going to have this year. We've got a couple families who are up in Alaska doing the Alaska Kodiak Family Ocean Challenge, where you go as a whole family and you do the whole fishing and learning, and it's just a whole experience. So we have a couple families up there, which we're a little bit jealous of, but they'll probably be next year. Hopefully they'll keep doing it. And we have a family that's on their way to the Netherlands to spend a year there. And we've got over 20 people who are at the Blessed Culture and Sports Festival in Indiana this weekend. So we're all over the place. And it's, a lot of people start school next week or in a couple weeks, and so it's kind of the last big hurrah. So I'm excited for everyone coming back, but it's just kind of where things are at. But I love it when our community has a chance to kind of go all over and spread our good cheer, I guess. Spread the word, the good things. So I want to talk today about having a no matter what mindset. And I remember back in the day, which for me was about 20 years ago, and there was a number of speeches that were given by our true father, our founder, who he gave these speeches. He called them the peace messages. And he asked us to reread these messages over and over again. These were generally like messages that were given to the public, and he asked us to kind of reread them over and over and over again for our morning reading. And there was one thing that one speech that we read a lot because it was kind of one of the shorter speeches. And in the speech he said, he's talking about a lot of different projects that he's envisioned to do in his life. And if you know Reverend Moon, he had a lot of ambitious ideas and projects. And so he had, the Peace Cup and the Bering Strait Project and, this idea of bringing the blessing to the whole world. And at one point he's talking in his speech and he says, some may laugh and some may say that is impossible. He's specifically talking here about the bringing the blessing of the world and also the Bering Strait project, which, if you don't know, this project was the idea of creating a highway that basically went from South America, the bottom of South America, all the way up through Canada and went across the Bering Strait into Russia, and then, basically connecting the entire world besides like Australia, obviously, by highway. So the idea is that by creating this, it would help to bring the world together. This was very much in line with many ideas that he had in his life. And so obviously people felt like, well, that's a really ambitious project. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to require cooperation between all these governments. It's never going to happen. And so he says, some may laugh and say that it is impossible, yet where there is a will, there is a way, especially if it is the will of God. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, I remember rereading and reading this speech, and I'm thinking to myself, he said this thing over and over and over again, where there is a way, where there is a will, there is a way, especially if it is the will of God. But then I re-looked at the speech and I realized he only said it once. It's just my memory that thinks that he said it over and over and over again, but he really didn't. But it has left an impression on me. Whenever I come to a difficulty in my life, or something that seems insurmountable, like a mountain, so to speak, we'll talk about that later, I think about this quote. I think about how he said, where there is a will, there is a way, especially if it is the will of God. Now, True Father is not the first person who has said something like this. You've probably heard a similar quote, where there is a will, there is a way, right? Lots of people have used this quote. It's a very common saying. But he really emphasized that not just that where there is a will, there is a way, but especially if it is the will of God. And I think that is an important distinction, because we can all have personal desires, personal ambitions, personal goals in our life, and we should. There's nothing wrong with that. I remember when I was young, there was a show that was on, and you may or may not remember it depending on how old you are. It was called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood left a great impression on young people all around the world, probably, at least in America. I'm guessing it was probably broadcast in other places. Because I remember when I would go to Japan, I'd see American TV shows when I was young. So I'm guessing it was there. But, I remember one time he's doing his episode. And of course, the purpose of his show is to inspire children to be whatever they can be. And he said, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And I was like, yeah, I believe you. When I was older, there was a thing called The Secret. Some of you have heard of it. It's this idea of kind of being intentional about what you want and kind of like visualizing it and making it happen. It doesn't really talk about God at all, but it's this idea of like the secret is that if you want something to happen in your life, you have to like intend for it. It's not really a secret, but but it's meaningful. I mean, it's not a bad idea by any means. So this idea of where there is a will, there is a way it's common idea. But I think that life is not just about figuring out what I want. And how can I get what I want? It's not bad, but I think that ultimately that single-minded way of thinking will not bring us real fulfillment or happiness in our life. God didn't wire us that way to simply seek after my personal desires and how can I make it happen. So what's inferred here is that when we align what we want with what God wants, there's more power in that. It's a different dimension of thinking. And it also brings more, I believe, fulfillment and meaning. Jesus said something similar. He said, so this is in Matthew, this is in this section, this chapter of the Bible, Jesus was asked by a father to come and cure his son who was possessed. And Jesus, a little bit frustrated at first, but had him bring his son. And in the Bible it says that he cast out the demon and his son was healed. And the disciples were like, well, why weren't, because they had tried and it didn't work. And the disciples were like, why, oh yeah, he says, why couldn't we drive it out? And he replied, because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. So, as far as I know, nobody has really literally been able to move a mountain with their faith. But what's understood here is that Jesus is talking about, when you think of a mountain, it's kind of like my cover photo. Where is that? There. It's like this unsurmountable obstacle in my life, which is interesting because the Fortunes are organizing a 14er hike, and that also feels like the same thing for me. I'm like, nah, I can't do that. There's no way. I got to wake up at like 3 in the morning. I got to prepare myself and all this stuff. Who knows? We'll see. I'm still on the fence about it. But mountains in our lives, I think that Jesus was talking about symbolic mountains. These things in our life that just seem impossible or possible, but so much work, so much effort, so much sacrifice that maybe it's not worth it. These could be things that we want, but they just seem out of reach to us. Or we just don't even know how we would get there. We don't know how we would even get started. This could be like a relationship with a child or somebody who has become disconnected or distant, or a parent who's in the same situation. A dream that we have given up on. A personal goal or a hope. But what Jesus is saying is that if you have faith, and if you have a no matter what mindset, then you will find a way. You will find a solution. A lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about how something can't happen. That's like me with the 14er. I'm like, well, I'd have to exercise. I'd have to probably work out, I'd probably have to go on walks or run or something, which are all things that I've been telling myself I should be doing, especially as I'm in my 40s now and, my metabolism kind of stopped working a long time ago, at least not the way it used to. These are all things that would be really good for me, probably, which is the reason why I'm really thinking about doing it. Maybe it would give me a motivation to eat healthier, which is something I should be doing as well. But it just seems, I'm trying to figure out if it's worth it. But I find myself coming up with lots of excuses. But I found that if we want something badly enough, then we will find a way. Maybe in my mind, being healthy is not as important to me as I tell myself it is. I believe that if we want to find a way, and if we're willing to approach God with humility, with openness, and a willingness to change, and to do the hard work, then God will show us a path maybe where we couldn't see one before. And we may find that God has actually already been working to prepare the way, to prepare a path for us. So one of the other sayings that I've found myself repeating a lot over and over again and have found to be one of my favorite sayings these days is something that was said by Plato. Nope, where is that? Oh dear. Did not put it in there. Okay. Plato said, necessity is the mother of invention. You've probably heard this saying before. If something is no matter what, if it's something that I have to accomplish. It's not an optional thing. It's not like it would be convenient. It'd be nice if it happened, but something that is so important to me that I can't live my life without it. Then we will find a way. Because it's not a want, it's a need. And when something is a need, then we find a way to get to that thing. And I believe that God has the ultimate no matter what attitude. Just like the song that the music ministry performed for us said. God will never stop. We can't do anything so bad in our life that God will be like, nah, not worth it. Is God a God who starts something and then later decides it's not worth it? Nobody would think that God is like that. We understand intuitively God is not like that. God is not like us. Because we see that when people are living their best life, or whatever that looks like, I don't know, it's when we are striving for something out of our reach, but we know it's so important to us that we're willing to make the sacrifices. We're willing to overcome the barriers and the hurdles to get to that thing that we want. When people are overcoming their challenges and achieving their dreams, then we intuitively sense there's something godly about that. There's something good about that. We understand that God must have some sense of that within himself if we have it as well. God must be a God that when he sets his mind to something, he finds a way. And that's what we see. That's what we see in, it doesn't look that way, but when we look at what God has done, then we see that God is like that. This is from the Divine Principle. When God created human beings, he promised to help us accomplish the three great blessings. He declared through Isaiah, I have spoken and I will bring it to pass. I have purposed and I will do it. Meaning that despite the fall, God has been working to fulfill his promise to us through the providence to restore these blessings. He sent Jesus to restore us to our original ideal state. As we can discern from Jesus' words to his disciples, you therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. An original ideal person is one with God and has realized the divine nature. Thus, with reference to the purpose of creation, he is perfect as God is perfect. The sinful world brings humankind sorrow and causes God to grieve. Would God abandon this world in its present misery? God intended to create a world of goodness and experience from it the utmost joy. Yet due to the human fall, the world came to be filled with sin and sorrow. If this sinful world were to continue forever in its present state, then God would be an impotent and ineffectual God who failed in his creation. Therefore, God will save this sinful world by all means. To what extent should God save this world? He should save it completely. So this highlights the kind of God that we have. God that will not stop until all of his original intention is accomplished. No matter how long it takes, no matter what is required. God will not settle for less. So also for us, we're trying to inherit. We're trying to become more godly people. And so this is one aspect that I think that we can learn from and inherit into our lives. For us, having a mountain experience for us recently was, as most of you know, we bought a house in November. together with my parents. And for us, it was this kind of experience. I know people buy houses all the time. It's like, okay, whatever, But for us, it was like a mountain experience, climbing the mountain experience, because, to be honest, we never thought we would ever own a house, Adonia and I, because, we could never afford a house in Denver on a pastor's salary. And it was just something that we never expected to do. We had hopes, someday, like, we'll start a business, or maybe we'll grow a mega church, or, whatever. And then maybe that could be a possibility, but we just never saw that possibility for ourselves at least in the near future. But necessity created invention. For lack of a better way to say it. We got into a situation where we needed one. Not that we needed a house per se, but we needed a change. My parents needed a change. We needed a change. We pooled our resources and also somehow, and I can't even take credit for it, but we started that business reselling stuff a couple of years ago. And because all of these things lined up in the right circumstances, we were able to accomplish that thing that we wanted. And it's not the way we expected that things were going to happen. But this whole experience of living together with my parents and moving has really improved our quality of life. We were happy where we were, despite the challenges. But this has really opened our eyes to, what was possible, and we didn't even realize what was possible. That's not to say that it's been easy or that it's over. We now have a much more expensive life than we had. We're not, living off the church property. And so now we are doing what many of you are doing, paying our own bills. Wow. A mortgage and insurance and all these different things. Paying our own utility bill. And so it's required, at least for now, in the short run, to spend a lot more time investing into our business so that we can afford this new life that we have. And maybe some people would say, maybe you should have just kept your old life. It was simpler, cheaper, and have more time. But there's something to be said about being able to take responsibility for your life in a way. And even if it means that you have to work for it, I just wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't mind having to work really hard if it means a better life. And I think that sense is ingrained into all of us. We want a better life. We want a better life for ourselves. We want a better life for our kids. We want a better life for the people we love. And we're willing to do what it takes to get that better life. And that's I think, a sense of co-creatorship that God imbued into us. And I think it's a good thing. And also, it's been really beautiful to see how God has worked through that, because I remember we were visiting somebody who's out of state, and we were like, and they were like, so what's new? And we were like, well, we moved. And she's like, again? Because we moved 2 years ago, right? Like, the church bought the house down the road for us, and we moved in, and we spent a bunch of effort and time, and we didn't have enough money. We loaned the church money to be able to do the renovation work needed to be done there. And that was a big leap of faith and a big project. And then some people are like, what the heck, you're moving after 2 years? Like, we just did all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. Necessity is the mother of invention. But now it's, I don't know if you know, but like Yami has outgrown the house that we started, using 2 years ago when we moved out of that one. Now we've outgrown it. We don't have enough space there. So now Yami's filling up the other house, and we've got, Selena over there arrived last week. She apparently doesn't want to introduce herself yet, but we're happy to have you. Welcome. So Selena came here from, let's give her a round of applause. And Lisa's going to be joining when at some point, maybe next month or something like that. And people, we have people who want to come and join Yami. As imperfect as it is, there's something of value there for them. And so I want our church to be of service to the people who need it, including our young adults, whoever needs it, whoever sees value in it. And so it's beautiful to see that it's not that we moved out and the house is sitting there not being used. No, it's been used for all kinds of great stuff. We've had missionaries staying there. We've had the UPA graduates come, and we've had our NGM teams stay. And now Yami is filling up the other house, and now we're going to have to figure out where we're going to get more space before too long. It's a beautiful thing, and I feel God. You could argue maybe it's just coincidence, but I feel God working through these things. And I feel God preparing the way before we even know we needed it. So that's been a big mountain experience for us. So now we're also gearing up for the next chapter of our church, as I've shared with some of you and all of you to some degree. It's like another huge mountain that we see coming up in the distance. But necessity is pushing us in that direction. And so, as all things, it seems intimidating to climb a mountain. It seems intimidating to commit to doing something that we know will be difficult. But I also think that that's where the excitement and beauty of life is. So I'd like to finish up with a couple more quotes here. This is from our true mother. Oh, there it is. How about that? Sorry. There it is. Really needed that to be on the screen. This is from recently when she spoke to the Japanese members after the dissolution of our church in Japan. She said, "Therefore, no matter what circumstances we face, we must not become discouraged, but move forward with faith in Heavenly Parent. Heavenly Parent always knows our prayers and devotions. Heavenly Parent knows every tear we shed and every hardship we endure. When we look back on the providence, we see that God has always initiated new aspects of the providence from places of suffering. From a human perspective, things may appear difficult, but when we look with eyes of faith, within those very circumstances, preparation for heaven's will are being made, and a new path is opening up. When we consider the heart of Heavenly Parent, who has patiently endured throughout the 6,000 years of human history, we come to believe that even the difficulties we are experiencing now are ultimately a part of the process through which heaven's will is being fulfilled." We tend to think that when things aren't going the way we think they should be going, there's something wrong. And maybe there is. I'm not saying that just because that things are right just because they seem like they're going wrong, but I think that we need to open up our mind a little bit to the idea that maybe God is doing something through the hardships or through the difficulties that we are experiencing or that we are going through. Maybe that the things that aren't going well, God will use. And, frankly speaking, and I've given messages on this before, God often has no choice but to use bad circumstances. God has to use what there is. If God couldn't use bad circumstances for good, and he was waiting for the right things to happen, we'd be waiting a long time. And then lastly, I want to also just end on this note that faith is important. Faith to move a mountain is important, but in Corinthians, it says, if I have the gift of prophecy and I know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to move mountains, which is a clear reference to what Jesus said, but do not have love, I am nothing. And so Paul's reiterating here that having faith to move a mountain is important. But there has to be love connected to the faith. Otherwise, it doesn't have a lot of value. So that's probably a whole nother message, but just kind of wanted to end on that point. And that is my message today. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parent, thank you for this day. Thank you for everyone here. Heavenly Parent, I want to pray for all of our family that are around the world right now experiencing different things. Please be with them. Please be with we know that you are already with this world, Heavenly Parent, and guiding events and circumstances, but we pray, Heavenly Parent, that we can also be a part of your work, Heavenly Parent, that when we look at our lives, we may see things that we want. We may see mountains, and they may seem unachievable. They may seem too far away. They may seem impossible, or we gave up on them, Heavenly Parent. But Heavenly Parent, please help us to have fresh eyes and a fresh heart. And please help us, Heavenly Parent, to see the path forward. These things that we wanted or that we want, Heavenly Parent, they're important. And if they're important to us, Heavenly Parent, we know that they're important to you as well. Heavenly Parent, please help us to find the strength and the energy, Heavenly Parent, to go forward, to not give up, but to keep searching for the way, the path forward, Heavenly Parent. There are so many things that are important in our lives. To heal hurts and to accomplish things, Heavenly Parent, that you have set before us to accomplish. And I pray, Heavenly Parent, that you can grow that seed within each and every one of our hearts, where maybe we gave up on something. Please help us to believe in it again. Please help us to find a way in our personal lives, in our families, and in our community and world, Heavenly Parent. And Heavenly Parent, just want to express the gratitude because you have brought us so far. You've brought us here today. We wouldn't be here if you hadn't created this path for us to be here. And the path doesn't end here, Heavenly Parent. You have a path for us to go forward. And I pray that we can find that path and we can find the strength to walk that path. And thank you, Heavenly Parent, for all your love, for never giving up on us. And I offer this prayer on behalf of all of our blessed families here. Amen and adieu. Thank you so much.